All right, welcome everybody. Um, let's join palms and bow. The four great vows. I vow to deliver innumerable sentient beings. I vow to cut off endless vexations. I vow to master limitless approaches to Dharma. I vow to attain supreme Buddhahood. Thank you for joining Monday Night Chan. I'm lecturing today because Gilbert's traveling back from the retreat that he just gave at Pine Bush, New York. All right, today I'm going to continue on Diamond Sutra, just a different set of lines this time. And so if last week's lecture, it was the lines that I talked about one line actually was this: if a bodhisattva retains the perception of a self, perception of a person, perception of a being, or a perception of a life, then he is not a bodhisattva. So that line was about how not to look at yourself or another person. So to not look at that, as somebody as something solid internally, externally, that's over space, or over time as somebody who's being right now, moment to moment, or somebody who has a lifespan, a beginning and an end to that being. So not to look at a person like that, not to solidify the concept of somebody, yourself or somebody else like that. So if last week's line was about how not to look at ourselves, and therefore how to look at ourselves as being beyond the concept of a self, person, life, and being, this week I want to talk about how not to look at things, how not to look at phenomena. And the lines that the Buddha has to say in the Diamond Sutra are from the very end, the last few lines of the Diamond Sutra. I'm going to read them to you in one translation, and then we'll go into some of the others and we'll delve into the nuances there. So this one here is from Thich Nhat Hanh. Thich Nhat Hanh says, Subhuti, if someone were to offer an immeasurable quantity of the seven treasures to fill the worlds as infinite as space, as an act of generosity, the happiness resulting from that virtuous act would not equal the happiness resulting from a son or daughter of a noble family who gives rise to the awakened mind and reads, recites, accepts, and puts into practice this sutra and explains it to others, even if only a gatha of 4 lines. So this is like standard Diamond Sutra speak, where the generosity of giving things is contrasted here with the generosity of giving the Dharma, the teachings, right? And the sutra is again beautifully self-referential. It's talking about itself. If you were to just there are several lines of the Diamond Sutra talking about several lines of the Diamond Sutra, and and fun times, you score if you share those few lines. So I just like the whole how self-referential this whole all of Diamond Sutra is, but it's pretty fun just from a totally objective viewpoint, if you will. But what it's saying here is that there's no generosity as big as the generosity of giving rise to the awakened mind, and that's bodhicitta. And then it talks about reads, recites, accepts, puts into practice the sutra. There's so much there. It's not just, it's giving rise to bodhicitta. And bodhicitta is the awakened mind. The awakening mind is, we know it's about compassion, right? That's the hallmark of bodhicitta, compassion, and unlimited compassion. And reads, recites, accepts, puts into practice the sutra. So you can take this sutra as a proxy for all of the teachings of the Buddha, to study, to accept, and to practice the Dharma, and explains it to others. And even if only those 4 lines, so explaining it to others. And there's criteria on how to explain it to others. And it's very intimidating criteria. It's very intimidating criteria. But before we get to that, so I want to read a couple more translations of these lines, and where this is leading to is this famous set of lines about that all phenomena are like a dream, like a cloud, a drop of dew. That's where it's leading. So but I'm not getting there until we really delve into the preface here. And because there's so much packed into the preface itself. So here is Red Pine's translation of those, that preface. Furthermore, Subhuti, if a fearless bodhisattva covered measureless infinite worlds with the 7 treasures and gave them as an offering, and a noble son or daughter took but a single 4-line verse of this teaching of Prajnaparamita and memorized it, made it known, recited it, mastered it, and explained it in detail to others, the body of merit produced as a result by that noble son or daughter would be immeasurably, infinitely greater. So those are just a couple of translations there, and then comes the really daunting topic of how should such a noble son or daughter, such a noble person who's given rise to the awakened mind, how should they explain? How should they explain the Dharma? How should they explain these few lines of the Diamond Sutra? So Red Pine says, how should they explain it? By not explaining. Thus should they explain it. So this is again, it's so characteristic of the Diamond Sutra. How should they explain it? By not explaining. Thus should they explain it. What is that pointing to? What is that pointing to when he says, explain by not explaining? Let's see if anybody wants to brave that. Ian.
It's pointing towards the non-conceptual nature of what the Diamond Sutra is all about. It's beyond the ability to conceive, beyond the ability to grasp. And so entering into an explanation with the idea of explanation means that the true heart will be trapped and it cannot be shared.
Thank you. That was wonderful. Thank you, Ian. Does anybody else want to say anything about That one line. It's inconceivable that, just what Ian said. Mind is inconceivable. The Dharma is inconceivable. And to try to conceptualize it would be an injustice. So how should they explain it? By not explaining. Thus should they explain it. And if that was all, that then we could just end here. But we are gonna go further. Thich Nhat Hanh translates that same line like this. In what spirit is this explanation given? Without being caught up in signs, just according to things as they are, without agitation. Okay, so Thich Nhat Hanh says, same question, how should they explain it? Without being caught up in signs, just according to things as they are, without agitation. So, and I before we delve into that, Han Shan also translates the same way. And what I found is Thich Nhat Hanh is really relying in other places as well. He's really relying on Han Shan's commentary, because it's very, very similar. So here is Han Shan's version, and this is from the Diamond Sutra's Severance of Doubts. This is an unpublished work by Bhikkhu Dharmamitra, who was kind enough to share it with me. And how would he proceed to expound its meaning for others? It would be by refraining from seizing on any signs while abiding, unmoving, in a state of utter suchness. By refraining from seizing on any signs while abiding, unmoving, in a state of utter suchness. So, this is what is. This is what is expected of a teacher expounding the Diamond Sutra. And as unworthy as I am still in front of you expounding these few verses. So refraining from seizing on any signs. So refraining from mistaking signs to be things. Signs here means appearances. So what is appearing in front of you, not assuming that it is a thing. While abiding, unmoving, in a state of utter suchness. And Thich Nhat Hanh's translation, without being caught up in signs, that's the same exact one as Bhikkhu Dharmamitra. Just according to things as they are. Bingo here. Han Shan has said this in his what is it called? Practice instructions to beginners. Simply accord to whatever state of mind you're in. That's his strong injunction. And practice in one sentence, how to practice in just that one phrase. So that same thing is here. I didn't know until I looked into this that, hey, Hanshan is saying that from the Diamond Sutra of all things. But according to things as they are, without agitation. So, not assuming that what is appearing is solid, that it's a thing, but simply according to things as they are. And without agitation. Agitation, cogitation. If Gilbert were to say this, he would say without cogitation. And from Bhikkhu Dharma Mitra, refraining from seizing on any signs. That's the same thing, not assuming that what is appearing is more solid than it actually is, while abiding, unmoving in a state of utter suchness. So Hanshan has a commentary on this set of on just that, on how to expound. And Hanshan is very practice oriented. So it's how could you put this to use? So that's where he's coming at from. So his commentary. Hence, if one is able to bear in mind but 4 lines of this very Dharma and expound its meaning for others, then the merit that one would acquire thereby will be of the most superior sort. This on account of refraining from seizing on signs, while abiding, unmoving in a state of utter suchness. On arriving at this point, we have reached the state of what is known as the incessant proclamation of Dharma that is always taking place, even in every dust mote and in every kshetra. So I'm gonna break that down a little bit. So before I go there, I wanted to remind you that last week when we talked about perception, that how perception comes to be, and how the Chinese character for perception, or sanjña, how that Chinese character is actually made of 2 components. One is the sign or lakshana. It is it's the appearance. And I apologize, I don't remember the Chinese term for sanjña or perception. But it is one of the skandhas for our Chinese-speaking friends. So the top part is appearance. That's the sign that they are talking about. And the bottom part of that Chinese character is mind, chitta, the heart mind, shin. And the 2 come together to make the Chinese character for sanjña or perception. So last week's lecture was all about how not to take that to be so I'm not sure if that's the one, Tori, that you just shared. I'll see if I can find it. So last week's lecture was about how not to mistake it. I found that it's Xiang. Oh, yes, that's the one, Vadim. Thank you. So last week's lecture was not how to solidify that the perception, and this week's lecture is also about that, but it's about how not to solidify phenomena. When you're looking at phenomena, how to refrain from seizing on any signs. And that's again talking about how not to make a thing out of what is perceived, which is the perception skandha, okay, of the 5 skandhas. So and then Hanshan says, on arriving at this point, we have reached the state of what is known as the incessant proclamation of Dharma that is always taking place, even in every dust mote and every kshetra. So what he's talking about here is, there is this question, what is Chan? Go ask the lamppost, right? And why the lamppost is proclaiming the Dharma. So that's what this is talking about. The incessant proclamation of Dharma that is always taking place, even in every dust mote. So every dust mote is a testament to the truth and perfect functioning of mind. And in every kshetra means every Buddha world. The constant proclamation of Dharma observable in the flaming radiance emanating from every pore of every Buddha's body. So that is utter suchness. That is abiding in a state of utter suchness. That every dust mote is a proclamation of the Dharma. Just as a flaming radiance emanating from every pore of every Buddha's body. Okay, so and then comes 4 lines. 4 lines which are all of the similes as to how to think of or how to perceive phenomena. And Thich Nhat Hanh's translation of those 4 lines are: all composed things are like a dream, a phantom, a drop of dew, a flash of lightning. That is how to meditate on them. That is how to observe them. All composed things are like a dream, a phantom, a drop of dew, a flash of lightning. That is how to meditate on them, and that is how to observe them. And Humphreys Evans Wentz, his translation is probably the most classic, and he actually attributes it to Dr. Kenneth Saunders. Thus shall ye think of all this fleeting world, a star at dawn, a bubble in a stream, a flash of lightning in a summer cloud, a flickering lamp, a phantom, a dream. Thus shall ye think of all this fleeting world, a star at dawn, a bubble in a stream, a flash of lightning in a summer cloud, a flickering lamp, a phantom, a dream. And Bhikkhu Dharmamitra, all conditioned dharmas are like a dream, a magical conjuration, a bubble, or a shadow. They are like the dew and like a flash of lightning. Just so should one pursue this contemplation. So I'm gonna share what Thich Nhat Hanh has to say about these 4 lines, and then what Hanshan has to say about them, and then we will go into some practice to see how we could actualize what we are learning from the Diamond Sutra, these few lines of the Diamond Sutra, because we have to apply it to our practice. That's what it's all about. So Thich Nhat Hanh says that, hey, you read this. After reading this verse, we may think that the Buddha is saying that all dharmas, all phenomena, are impermanent, like clouds, smoke, or a flash of lightning. The Buddha is saying all dharmas are impermanent, but he's not saying that they are not here. He only wants us to see the things in themselves, the things as they are. We may think that we have already grasped reality, but in fact, we are only grasping its fleeting images. If we look deeply into things, we will be able to free ourselves from the illusion. So, a phantom, a drop of dew, a flash of lightning, these things are impermanent. So, they're not as solid as they may appear to be. But Thich Nhat Hanh makes a very, very important point. So what he's saying is that it's not that they are not there, right? It's not that they are not there, but they are there, but they are fleeting. They are impermanent. They're not as solid as they seem. They're not as solid as we impute them to be. I think that's very, very important, that we are imputing. Imputing means we are placing something on top. There's something that appears, and we are placing something on top of what appears. And that's the part that can fall away. That the something that appears it's appearing, it's impermanent, it's not as solid as it seems. So, and this is true across the time and the space dimension. So, just from the space dimension, Thich Nhat Hanh says, we can even use scientific research to prove to some extent some sentences in this sutra. A table that looks firm and real, for example, may be only space and electrons, moving like a swarm of bees at close to the speed of light. Nuclear physicists have said that while going into the subatomic world, they find our common daily perceptions funny. Regardless of that, a physicist lives his ordinary life as other people do. Physicists drink tea, eat bread, just like the rest of us, even though they know that this piece of bread is made up of mostly space and a very small number of particles of matter. Right? So this is like super key. This is super key. So it's like, oh, it's just like a dream, so it doesn't matter. That's not what the Buddha is intending for us to take away from this. It is for us to see that it is not as solid as it seems. So in the scientifically speaking, what appears to be solid is not really solid. If you zoom in, it's mostly space. So while the scientist knows that, the scientist still is, holding a cup of tea and drinking that cup of tea, eating a slice of bread, right? Even though it's mostly all space. So that's spatially speaking. And then over time as well, there's this, everything is evanescent. It's so fleeting. Like that dewdrop on a leaf in the morning, is not going to last even an hour or so when the sun comes up. It's gone just like that. A morning star, you see it, and all of a sudden there's too much sunlight to see it. A bubble in a stream, it's there for a few seconds and it's gone. Right? It's gone. A cloud, just it comes, forms, and goes away. And you seems like so fluffy and it's somewhat solid, but then you fly through it and it is just, it's just like misty, right? And a lamp, it's just a flickering lamp. So that's how impermanent, how flowing phenomena is. They flow through space and they flow through time. And we attribute a solidity to phenomena, and that's a problem. So Han Shan, Bhikkhu Dharma Mitra's translation, he says, the correct mode of contemplation shall be explained in the following 4-line verse of Sutra text. Because prajna is wisdom. Prajna arises from cognition of what is empty and quiescent. It is entered from the contemplation of the truth of conventional existence. So, what this means? Because prajna, wisdom, arises from the cognition of what is empty and quiescent, from recognizing as empty and quiescent. So this is by silently illuminating. You could take that phrase as prajna. Prajna arises from silently illuminating. It is entered from the contemplation of conventional existence, which means that just the conventional things that you see around you, by contemplating them, silently and illuminating them as empty. That's how prajna arises. One then enters the contemplation of the truth of emptiness. From this contemplation of the truth of conventional existence. So, the contemplation of the truth of emptiness comes from contemplating the truth of conventional existence. This is like saying that it's like two sides of a coin. The relative and the absolute are like two sides of a coin. So only by contemplating how things are, which is the conventional existence, conventionally can how things are in the absolute can be recognized. So I'm going to read that again. One then enters a contemplation of the truth of emptiness. From this contemplation of the truth of conventional existence, what one then realizes is therefore known as true emptiness. This because conventional existence is itself just identical to the emptiness characteristic of ultimate truth. Conventional existence itself is just identical to the emptiness characteristic of ultimate truth. So all this is to say that seeing this dreamlike, evanescent nature of phenomena doesn't mean that doesn't mean that you turn away from phenomena. So it doesn't mean that, oh, this is just dreamlike, so I'm not going to look at it. That's not the intent of saying that all this fleeting world is like a bubble in a stream, right? Instead, it is to simply recognize the empty nature, which is the this flowing nature, this evanescent nature, this non-solid nature of all phenomena. And to do that is to peel away, the solidity that we are imputing to phenomena, the permanence that we are imputing to phenomena, to peel that away, to see the face of phenomena as they really are. All right, so I wanted to just let's see here. I wanted to do a couple of, and maybe I want to do one thing before we delve a little bit further in, and that's the simile of the flickering lamp. I actually happen to have a lamp here, and so I'm going to hold up a lamp, and this, yeah, right here. So this here, there's a lamp, and really we're not so interested in the lamp, the holding the lamp itself. I've got to see if I can find it. Maybe, okay, now you can see it. Okay, so it's not so much the outer, we are really looking at the flame. Though the text says lamp, we are really, the simile is about the flame. And if you look at the flame, it seems like it's a thing. It's this oval shaped thing, right? But there is no thing there. I mean, it is dramatically changing every moment. It is a happening thing. It's not really a flame. A flame is just a word that we use to describe, this light and heat that's coming up from the burning of the wax, right? It's like if you were to really look at it, you'll see that it's just changing every moment. Every moment something is happening. It's not really a thing. It's just a flame is a word that we use. So just so we can talk about this. It's a burning, that's what it is. It's an illuminating because there's some light coming up. There's a warming. All of these things are happening. It's not truly a thing. Right? So that's one simile. But you could actually go into each of these similes, and there's like some of the translations have vary between like 6 to 9 things that similes for phenomena. And the question is, can you look at all phenomena like this, that all of these phenomena are not things? We use words, we use nouns to talk about these things because that's our language. But these are all happening, and they're not as separate as they may seem. For example, with that flame, it looks like an oval of a certain shape, but and a certain size as well. But that size is actually limited by my ability to perceive. That the glow, the light that's glowing from that flame. Say I turned off my light, and it's actually pretty bright outside. But if it were totally dark, that size of the flame is going to become bigger. Why? Because of the conditions, you can see more of the light than you were able to before. So the size is not as certain as it seemed before. So when we look at something, we assume it to be something. And can that assumption be dropped? Can that assumption be seen through? Right? So so that's a challenge. And what Hanshan is saying is that it's only through silently illuminating such conventional reality that the ultimate reality is seen. So every conventional reality, every phenomena that you see is an invitation to see through it into its true nature. So I want to do a little segue from the Diamond Sutra to what Sally King how she talks about Buddha nature, just because I think that this is very helpful. She says, how is the Buddha nature concept to be reconciled with the anatman, no self idea? So we've been talking about no self, even though we haven't been using that particular terminology, in that phenomena have no self either, meaning phenomena don't have an inherent independent existence. So that's there is no solidity to phenomena. The solidity that we supposedly see is what we attribute to phenomena. So, and now she's talking about Buddha nature and how does that work with the anatman or the non-self idea? Buddha nature seems at first very much like a self. It is called the pure mind, the pure own nature, and even literally the perfection of selfhood. It is said to be eternal. It is said never to change. Recall that it was precisely the self as a permanent, changeless entity which the Buddha said does not exist. How can these two concepts be reconciled? The key to this reconciliation is to recognize that Buddha nature represents actions rather than an entity. So what she's talking about with Buddha nature actually applies to all phenomena. That's what these few lines of the Diamond Sutra are saying, that, it's about activity rather than an entity. What we saw as the flame is actually activity. If something is happening, and is that actually, I was quoting from an article of hers, but I'm sure that it's also there in the book. That was in response to Michael putting in a link to the Buddha Nature book by Sally King. And so Buddha nature represents actions rather than an entity. That flame was activity. It wasn't so much an entity as it was activity. It was something happening, right? So then further on how to practice with these 4 lines of the Diamond Sutra, Han Shan says, and this is Bhikkhu Dharma Mitra's translation. Here we enter the sublime contemplation of Prajna's true emptiness. Because true emptiness is characterized by deeply profound quiescence, that's the silent and silent elimination. It is in real reliance upon the conventional that one thereby contemplates it. If one succeeds in the contemplation of the 6 similes, then true emptiness will spontaneously manifest. And straightaway the principle of true suchness will be entirely revealed. Okay, so I'm going to read that again. So when it comes to the similes, that all conditioned dharmas are like a dream, a magical conjuration, a bubble or a shadow, like the dew, like a flash of lightning. Just so should one pursue this contemplation. So I like the way that Bhikkhu Dharma Mitra has translated it, because it's a contemplation. It's not just like you should think of it this way, which is what Evan Wen said. So, and Thich Nhat Hanh also talks about meditating on them, but contemplate is like it's a really amazing translation. Thus one should pursue this contemplation. So, and Han Shan talks about this contemplation here as a practice. And he says, here we enter the sublime contemplation of Prajna's true emptiness. Because true emptiness is characterized by deeply profound quiescence, it is in reliance upon the conventional that one thereby contemplates it. So you have to start somewhere, right? You know, if the task is, all right, just contemplate true emptiness, where do we start? So Han Shan is telling us where to start. He's telling us that the place to start is by contemplating the conventional, by contemplating the phenomena that appear to us. Okay? And he says that, and he talks about these similes, right? The similes that we've been talking about, the similes for phenomena that we've been talking about. If you succeed in contemplation of these similes, then true emptiness will spontaneously manifest. So that's what it means to contemplate. And when it comes to contemplation, it just like we do the direct contemplation, it's just the same. It's like, let go of any labels that arise and continue to contemplate. Just contemplate. And you will see how we separate. And it too is a beautiful functioning of the Buddha mind, that we are able to look at something and recognize it's hey, you know, this blob, it's this blob of blue, right? But this blob of blue is being recognized as a cup when you see it. And that's pretty amazing. That's pretty awesome, right? That there's a label that's put onto it, right? That's pretty amazing. That's how intelligent we are. That's how we function. But there's a time when there's too much that we attach to something. So can you contemplate? Can you contemplate, these 6 similes? And when you contemplate them, that all phenomena are like this, then emptiness will spontaneously manifest. And straightaway, the principle of true suchness will be entirely revealed. This then is what constitutes the correct explanation of the appropriate method of contemplation. Everyone engaged in cultivation should enter through this means. Everyone engaged in cultivation should enter through this means. The Dharma body's true realm of realization reaches its most ultimate and final expression here. Yeah. So simply by contemplating phenomena. So that's what Han Shan has to say to us. Can you contemplate all phenomena, using these similes? And on using the similes, the dream is an often used simile. And I feel like the dream, looking at all phenomena like a dream, can easily be misconstrued, because it's just a dream, so just discard it. It's like a bubble. It's like a bubble in a stream. Right? It's like a bubble in a stream. And if you were to look at it as, it's like a dewdrop, there's like, you could start to feel sad because a dewdrop is just going to disappear too fast, right? So just be aware of these subtle things that can come in as you use some of these similes to do your contemplation, because you look at it as a dream, and the flip side of looking at all phenomena as a dream is like, it's just a dream, and you turn away. That's not what's intended. Or you're like, oh, it's like a dewdrop. Oh, it's gonna go away soon, right? It's like you can't help it that these things come along. A bubble in a stream, I feel like that's a good one, because it's there, it's gone, there's a new one, and it's just bubbles in a stream, right? And one of the examples is also a rainbow. It's not here, but it's a rainbow. There's nothing solid to a rainbow, but it arises and it passes away. There is no place where actually the rainbow starts and actually ends, right? It's evanescent. It's here and it's gone, but it's still there. It's still there. When it's there, it's still there. So it's use these similes when you look at phenomena, and be aware of the shadow side of the simile, so that you don't get into discarding phenomena because it's like a dream, or feeling sad because it's impermanent. Instead, you're simply seeing phenomena as they are. So that's the lecture part of it. I wanted to do a little bit of a couple of practices to kind of make this material more practical and useful in your practice. And what Hanshan talks about, the direct contemplation, that's something you know how to do if you've gone to any retreats, or had any teachings in this in the Dharma lineage. You know how to do direct contemplation. I encourage you to do it, and maybe even formally take up one simile at a time. And how is phenomena like a bubble in a stream? How is phenomena like a flickering lamp? How is phenomena like a dream? Yeah, so you can take them one at a time, and you can do some direct contemplation, which is just like looking at whatever is around you, and you are going to look at it as though it were a bubble in a stream, as though it were a dream. That's just like what is this dream nature of what I'm looking at? What is this bubble in a stream nature of what I'm looking at? And so Hanshan says that when these, if one succeeds in the contemplation of these 6 similes, then true emptiness will spontaneously manifest. That's Hanshan's promise to you. So I would encourage you doing that. But we're also going to do a couple of other exercises right here. So before that, maybe I'd like to answer any questions that I might have, that might be pending before we go into that. So any questions before we start, like a couple of exercises? Okay, I'm taking that as a no. Okay, the first exercise is I would invite you to pick something up. Sorry about that. Pick something up that is, I'm holding a cup, but pick something up that's something that you can hold. Look at you, Frank, you've got the same colored cup. Just hold something. You don't have to show it to me. Just hold something in your hand. Okay, and I've never done this with somebody else. So we'll see if if it actually works out. So you're going to hold something up like this. And as you're holding it, see if you can let go physically as much as you can while still holding it. Can you relax around whatever it is that you're holding? How much can you let go while still holding on to this thing? While not letting it drop. How much more effortless could it be to hold this thing? What would it be like to hold this more lightly? What if you were to hold this while dropping an idea of holding it? Does it make it any more effortless to hold it? And that's our contemplation. And I want to hear from you on the results of this. Did it become easier to hold? That's my big question. Frank.
Well, I thought it was becoming easier to hold, and then it slipped even further again. It was pretty fun, though.
Awesome. Anybody else? It got easier, didn't it? Yes, no? Yeah? Pavel?
Yeah, I was holding this mala in my hand, and to the point where, to put it simply, I wasn't holding it anymore.
Mhm.
So I don't, I don't know if there's any sense about explaining that, but that was just the hand and the thing.
Awesome. Thank you. Thank you for sharing that, Pavel. Shloka.
I think it got easier when I dropped the idea of holding it.
Mm-hmm.
I don't know why.
Yeah, yeah. Thank you. Thank you for that. Zachary.
I had a fear I was going to drop it and break it.
Mm-hmm.
And I remembered waiting tables and not focusing on the platter of drinks you're carrying.
Yes. Yeah. I would, why not continue this exercise after we are done, and see what it would be to let go of that fear, and what happens then. You're still holding your cup. What would it be to let go of just the fear? Yes? Okay. Robert.
Yeah, it it appears at a certain moment. Visually, the cup seems there, but my hand doesn't felt the cup is there.
Mm-hmm.
It's a weird feeling. It's like your eye saw something, but your hand momentarily doesn't have any feeling of the item. It's a little bit weird.
Yeah.
Weird.
Yeah. Zachary, did you want to say anything more? No.
No, I just forgot how to lower my hand. Sorry.
Okay, no worries, no worries. Okay, awesome. Okay, so that was tangible, meaning that you could feel the difference of what it means to let go without letting go. Right? It was something lived. And what that's what Thich Nhat Hanh is alluding to, that when he talks about, a physicist knows that it is all space, but they're still eating bread, drinking tea. So but and that's at a physical level. I mean, we can draw an analogy to physics, but we are talking about our perception, which is a little bit of a different realm. So if it is, if holding this physical thing could get more effortless, lighter, by letting go of what was not needed. So I hope that, as it became easier and lighter, it became apparent to you that before that there was some effort that was really not needed. There was tightness that was really not needed. There's an attributed solidity that wasn't actually there from the object side. And this is key, there's fixation from the subject side that need not have been there, right? So, and this was just with a physical object. So what I would recommend that you do, in the upcoming days, is to notice when you're holding on to something in a way that maybe causes you, in a way that hurts you. And you just see if it's possible to hold it a little lighter, right? See if it's possible to hold, and just float that question. Is it possible to hold this a little lighter? Could I hold this with a little less effort, a little less fixation? And don't say, oh, I should be letting go. Don't go into that's a mode of fixation as well. So instead, just wonder, well, could this be held a little bit lighter? And see what happens. You may be able to breathe. Your body may relax. You may be less confrontational with somebody. And it's very fruitful when you can put this kind of a teaching to use in the toughest parts of your life. Whatever is challenging you the most, you'll see the biggest payoff if you can. You don't have to go all the way to emptiness. Just a little bit less fixation, a little bit less effort can make the biggest difference in those tough patterns in your life, your tough interactions with somebody, just a little bit of letting go. And it's not like, oh, let go of the cup and walk away and let it fall. It's not that kind of a letting go. Now you know that you can hold on to that object while still letting go around it. It's the same exact thing, but try it with maybe an attitude of some fixed view. Oh, this person is always like this, right? I always end up having to blah, blah, blah. When you have those always and never situations, when your script goes like, this person is always like this person never does this, or I'm always having to do blah, blah, blah. I never get to blah, blah, blah. The always and never are an indicator of imputed permanence. Okay, so find those places in your daily life where you notice that in your narrative, and see if you can ease up around it just a little bit. Hold that a little bit lighter. You don't have to discard anything at all. Just hold it a little bit lighter. Hold it a little bit lighter and see what happens. It actually does work. So 2 practices. 1, direct contemplation. That's exactly what Thich Nhat Hanh, what Han Shan through Bhikkhu Dharmamitra is recommending. Direct contemplation of just visual phenomena is a good place to start. Just to look around you, see something, and to notice these characteristics through these similes, and like a bubble in a stream. I like to call my son Bubble. He doesn't know why, but he's like a precious bubble in a stream, and notice that all phenomena are like this. And so that's one exercise. The other exercise is notice when you are imputing permanence, always, never, to certain circumstances in your life. And then try holding it a little lighter, like you tried with the object, holding an object physically today. So those are a couple of things to do, homework. So that's the end of the lecture, and I'm open to questions. Comments. Hey, Jan.
Hey, Sasa, thank you for your lecture. I really like the way you present this idea and other practice. I did have the feeling before, like this, like such practice. So I'm really glad you bring it up and make it more like be aware by people. Yeah. I have one question regarding the direct contemplation, because I think I don't really know what's the purpose of a direct contemplation, what we are looking for, from there.
Okay. So what we are looking for is to discard what additional things you're adding to what you're looking at. So you can imagine, you can, just as a good example is you have the apps like Google on your phone. So if you don't know something, for example, when I go for a walk and I don't know a particular flower, or a plant, what is this? A tree? What is this? I can just go to the Google app, and I can just use my camera to so that the Google app takes that image and it'll tell me, oh, this is, a foxtail fern. I'm like, oh, this fern looks really interesting. What is it? Oh, it's a foxtail fern. And what did it do? It's just a bunch of pixels that it got, right? It's just a bunch of pixels that it got. So now what it did was it said, all right, this is the background and this is the foreground, right? So it identified the foreground from the background. And it said, never mind all of the background. This is what we're looking at. And what is it? Is it a plant, a fish? So it's got a database of everything that it knows about, right? And it's doing like rapid comparison to say, oh, it's a plant. And then what kind of a plant it is? A fern, and it says, oh, it's a foxtail fern. That's what it is. So we are doing that all the time. And it's a beautiful functioning of the mind that we are doing that. It's wonderful intelligence, right? I mean, it's like taken us so long to have Google do what we've been doing all along, right? So it's not that we shouldn't be going around recognizing that blob of green as a foxtail fern. There's nothing wrong with that. However, it's helpful to be able to just see the blob of green as a blob of green. Why? Because in our real life, we impute permanence, we impute separateness where there is no need to. Just as an example, I told you, like, I'm always having to do this. I'm always having to pick up after my son. What happens when I think like that, right? It's going to lead to suffering, right? As opposed to, well, there's stuff on the floor right now, and I don't think I should be the person taking care of it because it's not me who put it there. That's there's no always, never, those kinds of and there could even be a recognition of a pattern. But when you impute permanence, right, then there's it leads to suffering. That's why I'm asking you to see that for yourself. So when we do the direct contemplation, it's a safe place for us to let go of that extra layer of interpretation that we add on. And what happens is that Google will never do this mistake, but we do this mistake. We think that it is just a foxtail fern. We forget that it's a blob of green, right? It's just this particular blob of green. We forget that and we say, oh, it's a foxtail fern. And what happens, where it goes wrong, is when we mistake that blob of green or something else. For example, the classical example that's given is when a stick is mistaken to be a snake. When a stick is mistaken to be a snake, there's so much suffering and it was all not needed. Instead, if a stick is just recognized as a stick, then there's an immediate diminishing of suffering. So when we're doing direct contemplation, you're training to see things as they are and to become aware of that extra layer that's actually perception. That there's a form and there is the stored information that's in the consciousness, and they're coming together to in recognition, which is the sanjna or perception. So we want to just become aware of it and let it drop and just continue to look at the green blob. That's what we are doing with the direct contemplation.
Yeah, I actually get the method. I guess I just used the wrong way to present it. It's not like what they're looking for, but what's the purpose related to our practice? Like we should contemplate and like relax, like what you just said, like holding a cup. We just relax and just and keep still kind of thing. So then we probably feel different. Is it? I guess that should be the right way. I know, like we shouldn't put a name, put any like knowledge or any like concept, those things. Yeah. I totally know that. But one thing I was trying to ask is, I don't, when we contemplate, we see things appear, right? Like leaves or flower. We don't give a name. We don't give a name as a flower or it's what kind of flower. But when I see different color of flower from the same tree or even same branch, for example, I see red and a little pink and a pink on the same branch, then kind of like a realization come to me, like, oh, this thing actually is okay. The pink actually was red before, is faded over time. It's kind of this kind of like realization come to me. I don't know if this kind of realization is is also our self or perception kind of thing. Give the explanation.
I would say don't worry about whether it's the self or not the self. You just say, oh, that's interesting, and you go back to contemplating the tree and the flowers.
So this kind of realization is also like a kind of like a we created explanation, or it's, I don't know, it's there.
So
we kind of like saw it.
Yeah, there's a problem in trying to analyze what comes up. So what I would suggest is don't say, oh, is this the self? Is not, no, never mind. Well, never mind whether it's the self or not the self. Never mind. The work that you're doing when you're doing the direct contemplation is to see what's in front of you. So continue to see what's in front of you.
Got it. Thank you.
Okay, you're welcome. Wait, Sean?
Hi, Santa. Thank you for the lecture.
You're welcome.
Very nice. And because you use the scientific method to challenge materials, I like to go a little further. That's something bother me, to use a scientific method to analyze time.
Yes.
Because by my analysis, there's no such thing to begin with as a present moment. I mean, if you think about it, say people say present moment is 1 second. You can have it, half second. You can split that in half, 1/4, 1/8, and so forth forever. So to begin with, my conclusion is there's no such thing as a present moment. There's only past, there's only future. And our sense of time is because we grasp that memory.
Hold on. I'm not agreeing to what you said about there's only future and only past. But
Okay.
I hear you. So please.
By saying that, it means actually the future and the past, and the future and the past actually don't exist, right? We scientifically we know, because that's past, it's gone. And we don't have a present, and we don't have a future, we don't have a past. But how is the grasping of the memory of the previous thoughts, the saying that thought was real, make us think from that thought to this thought, there's a sense of time. That's what I like to challenge. But in reality, that's past, is gone. But we think it's real. Okay, yesterday he did this to me, and today, but it's only because our memory, we think there's a time. We're grasping that what happened yesterday as real until now we think about it, and then we say, okay, one day has passed, I still hate him. I'm trying to challenge, because by analysis, the very easy one is there's no such thing as a present moment. And definitely I agree, there's no past and there's no future. It's all constructed in the mind by the memory. We okay, for some that thing, sorry. I'm trying to, but yes, it's very interesting. I'm just trying to challenge the concept of time. But yet that so-called
Yes,
present moment.
Yes,
Yes.
so space and time do not exist, but that has to be experienced. That has to be experienced. When I talked about, when I read Thich Nhat Hanh's explanation from physics, I did mention that it's an analogy. It's an analogy. It's still talking about the material world.
Of course.
It's only an analogy.
Yes. It has to be experienced. What I'm going to say next is, yet that so-called non-exist present moment is underlying every memory we have. Otherwise, you don't see the world. And that need to be experienced. Yes. But I do want to challenge, and I want to present to everybody and how to think about time, why we have a sense of time. I'm little challenge myself, but I like to ask for everybody's brainstorming and help on this as well.
Okay.
But that's my.
So if you want to truly experience
Yes.
that time and space is empty, then practice.
Yes.
So you can logically do analysis. If you're interested in doing logical analysis, then read Nagarjuna, right? And even if you read Nagarjuna, it's kind of like the reading Nagarjuna is like you need to contemplate, you need to practice in order to read Nagarjuna. So it doesn't happen without practice. So other than that, having long arguments are not, it's not very, it's neither here nor there.
Yes.
If this is not to be experienced, it is not, it's still a lot of fluff. So that's
Yes.
what I would say. Yeah.
I agree with that ultimately, but yes, it's very interesting. But it does give me a motivation to practice. Yes.
Mm-hmm. Yes. Find out for yourself. That's what the Buddha said. Ehipassiko. That means come and see for yourself.
Yes. Thank you.
Okay. Hi, Robert.
Hi. Thank you. Santa, your example is really very interesting. It helps me to recall my change before I learned Chan and after I learned Chan the last 5 years, because the exercise of the cup reminds me of relaxing and the present moment. And before I learned Chan, as I recall now, I was so intensely focused on the issue. Usually I deal with lots of issues, probably 20 to 50 issues a day, and so intensively, always dealing with the past, the future, analyzing, and I felt the shoulder is filled with so much burden in dealing with it. But after learning Chan, it becomes so simple. It is what a relief to be, forget about the future, forget about the past, just deal with the present. I mean, with just that, your shoulder, the burden literally just drop because you just focus on the present and relax. And I have to say, it is literally magical or amazing. So many issues that I've been dealing with lately, particularly, has could have been very, very troublesome and very stressful and very painful. But the outcome, dealing with the same way you hold a cup today, relax in the moment. I just dealt with those issues as they come out. The last 3 weeks, 2 issues at the same time. The outcome is literally, I can almost say it is close to perfect, but I have no stress at all by dealing with it one step at a time, one moment at a time throughout the 3-week process. So learning Chan and learning to relax, learning just stay in the present moment, just see what is happening at that moment and address it and deal with it functionally accordingly.
Mm-hmm.
It is fun, and it's very happy to see that. So I just want to say your example is a very good example, and thank you very much. I'm going to teach my other friends
Okay.
about it too.
All right. Michael.
Hello, Santa. I wanted to provide some food of thought for Wei Shan, just for his inquiry about time and memory. So in contemporary neuroscience, there's this notion of predictive coding, which says that what the brain does or consciousness does is to build a model to predict what will come next. And if whatever comes next matches the prediction, is fine. Just go with the flow. Model is accurate. If there's a mismatch, do something about it, raise attention, adjust the model. And of course, this needs somehow concepts to build a model. And so it kind of predicts the movie. And why so? In order to build a system to keep safe, to predict whatever dangers can, just to guarantee continuation of the organism. So in a sense, this and from this model comes, of course, the sense of self. So one sees how these things are tied together: time, prediction, sense of self, keeping the self safe, and to offset fears. So one can get a sense how all of this comes together with this sense of time, and what one then can imagine what would happen if one lets go of all of this. Mm-hmm. So I just want to put this out.
Thank you, Michael. Yeah. So one interesting thing that you just shared, Michael, was it comes from a from this need to protect, to survive. So our sense of self is a defense mechanism, and some of what we're doing is, as we're practicing, we are letting go of the defenses that don't need to be there. And often it's like how allergies are like an overreaction of our immune system. It's kind of like that. There's more defense than there's actually a need for. So what if you just let go of just the extra part? You could start there. So. All right. Any other questions, comments? So I forgot to highlight this one thing in what we read. So all conditioned dharmas. That's what Bhikkhu Dharmamitra translates Hanshan as, and Thich Nhat Hanh says all composed things. These are both referring to how we. Thich Nhat Hanh says about all composed things. That's kind of like those green pixels. Oh, that's a foxtail fern. Everything is composed of something, right? So any object that you see, itself is made out of particles, and any image that we receive of that is also made out of pixels, if you will, in that analogy. So it's a composed thing. It's good to remember that it's a composed thing. Everything all appearances are composed. And from Hanshan and Dharmamitra, that all phenomena are conditioned. Pratitya samutpada, they are following causes and conditions. So there's a flow there, and this is just a point in time slice of that flow of conditioned phenomena. Both of these are important words that I wanted to highlight during the lecture. All right. Anything else? Anybody else? Any questions, comments? Okay. Thank you very much.